Episode 180, Women Building Businesses with Bonnie Wiscombe.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
In the last few years, have you noticed a large number of LDS women starting their own businesses? Why do you think this has been happening? Coach Bonnie Wiscombe believes that it is a result of so many of them feeling a call from God to do so, and to use them to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ through their business endeavors. Women are pulled in many different directions, and starting a business can seem daunting. Many women are afraid that they aren't doing the right thing, that their families will suffer, or that they don't have what it takes to be successful. Bonnie helps these women overcome their fears and step into the calling of building a business. This is a great episode for the newbie entrepreneur, but also for the veteran. If you would like to have Bonnie help you build your business, then make sure to reach out to her and let her show you the way. Enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, here we are at Latter-day Life Coaches. Welcome to our podcast today, and I am joined by another fantastic coach, Bonnie Wiscombe. Hi, Bonnie.
Hello, Heather. How are you?
I am fantastic. The name Bonnie is very endearing to me. My grandmother, who is like one of my most favorite people and one of my dearest friends, her name's Bonnie. So anytime I meet somebody named Bonnie, I just instantly feel like I love them.
It is an old lady name. My husband still teases me about it, that I have an old lady name, but I like it.
I like it too. And I hope it's one of those names that has a comeback, because there's a lot of those names that kind of are getting that. They're coming back around. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but I do love your name.
Thank you.
Bonnie and I have had the opportunity to chat before, and I am just excited for this conversation today. I think you guys are going to love it. Before we get started though, Bonnie, can you share with people a little bit about you, just so we can connect a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to. So I am a life coach. That's the business I'm working on right now, but I kind of call myself a serial entrepreneur. So I have been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. I have 10 kids and we homeschool. So much chaos and love and wonderful, terrible parts that come with motherhood. But about 10, 12 years ago, I thought I need something besides motherhood. Like sometimes I feel like I'm going to go crazy if I don't have some way to feel fulfilled outside of just raising my babies. And so I started my first business. And from there, I just got totally hooked. And I've started probably 3 or 4 businesses since then, just always trying something new. That sounds interesting. Let me try that. Oh, that sounds interesting. Let me try that. It's really, really fun for me. But then in 2020, I had kind of done some life coaching myself, meaning, seen coaches and listened to some of the magic and started in on some podcasts of some coaches that we all know, and just completely fell in love with it. And so I started coaching a little bit on the side there. In 2020, but then I still had one more baby to have. So it was kind of a side project until after she was born, and I just knew it was time to get certified. So I got certified last year and have been building my coaching business since then. And I specialize in helping women start their businesses that they've been dreaming of or wanting to do or feeling like it's time to put something into the world. It's really fun.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Because first of all, I can imagine people going, Bonnie, you have 10 children. How in the world do you find the time for something like this? And certainly we will talk a little bit more about that, because I don't think it matters how many kids you have. We probably all struggle with that thought a little bit. Like, how is this even going to be possible for me? Because most moms feel pretty stretched anyway, regardless of how many children you have. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to hear people's experiences and their wisdom in this area. And because mine is, I don't know, our stories are all unique, but I think there's something that resonates with everybody when we hear different people's stories. So,
yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Anyway, so good. All right. So if you spend a lot of time online, which for good or bad, I think most of us do, you'll notice that there's a lot of mompreneurs, I guess, for lack of a better word, out there, right? Like there's so many women on Instagram, so any sort of social media that are running businesses. They don't necessarily even advertise that they are members of the church, but I think you can usually pinpoint them for some reason. Like I can
Mm-hmm,
usually
mm-hmm.
pick them out, which is kind of interesting, but I'm sure you've seen this too. But I'm curious why you think this is happening. Like why are they so successful and why is there so many?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think you can pick them out because we're a peculiar people, right?
Yeah.
It's just some
Yes.
things that we can tell, like, wait a
All right.
minute.
Thank you for saying that.
For sure. So this is what I love to see, and this movement has kind of just kind of shaped the way I look at my coaching practice the last year or so. And I think that the Lord is calling us. I think that we're in a very, very special time of history. Of course, we know that this is the last days, and there's a lot of really cool things happening, and this is one of them. I think the Lord is like, hey, whispering to so many of us, hey, I think it's time for you to look into this. Hey, I think it's time for maybe you to stretch your wings in this way or share your talents in this way. And for some of us, it's like, oh, really? I can do that and be a mom? Okay, that's kind of how I felt stepping into it. I can do something for me too and still show up as the mom I want to be. And for others of us, it's terrifying. And we're like, no, I am not doing that, right? We come into it kicking and screaming. But the vast majority of women I've talked to who have stepped into business, who have either LDS background, Christian background, do so because they feel like it's a call. They feel like God is telling them to do it. And so I've thought and pondered a lot about why this is. And I just really think that it's the Lord's way of shining more of his light into the world. It's like, hey, I have this entire army of incredible women that the world needs to see. And so here's the internet. Now you can see them without them ever leaving their home. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm totally one of those women that was like, I stepped into where I am right now, kicking and screaming every step of the way, which seems so funny, right? Because it seems like, why would we do it if we were kicking and screaming, if we didn't want to do it? But it's really hard to deny that pull, that when you're feeling your
Mhm.
soul pull you towards something, it's like, it's like this friction that you're like, I don't want to, but I want to, I don't want to, but I want to.
Yes,
And
totally.
that was totally me. So I really relate to
I
that.
love it.
It makes me laugh to this day because I was sitting right in this room like, I don't want to do this, but okay, I guess I'll do this. But all right.
Good for you. Good for you for saying yes.
I don't know. Some days I'm like, was I sure did I heed that correctly? Like, was that really, did I just interpret it in some way? But anyway, that's that's women's brains, right? We second guess everything, I think, for the most part. Like, oh, maybe
Totally.
that wasn't correct. Maybe I wasn't really supposed to, but all right. There's many women who would like, I think, to join this movement of influential women that are out in the world, expanding themselves outside of the walls of their own home. But a lot of reservations, right? I mean, my reservations were huge. Can you speak to those reservations a little bit and that you see women having? I'm sure you see that a lot, especially if you're helping women who are doing that. What is it what are the fears? What are the reservations that come up?
Yeah, I think there are three main ones. The first one is this the right decision? I mean, to our credit, we check in with God a lot, which I think is fantastic.
Mhm.
But I also think that there's not always a right decision. And sometimes we like to make everything a moral issue. Is this the right decision? The other reservation I see a lot for good reason is our families. Are we going to neglect our families? Are our kids going to look back and go, Mom was never there. She was working on her business and have resentment for that? And then the third thing is, am I good enough? That comes up over and over and over. I can't do this. I'm not an expert. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not educated enough. I don't have what it takes to build this business. So it's one of those three or a combination of three that hold women back. And not just at the beginning, it holds them back throughout the entire journey, myself included. All three of those come up for me all the time. And that's why we're coaches, right? Because we can
Mhm.
coach ourselves through anything, but those are really, really common frustrations or fears.
Mhm. And I think a really interesting like response to all three of those is you're right in all three of those areas, right? Like I probably can't do this, or it might take some time away from my family. You're right in all of them, but what we're forgetting about is when we keep turning back to God, like he helped us get in the positions that we're in, and alone we can't do it. But I think if we
Yeah.
remember that we get to keep turning to him, he will help us figure out how to juggle it with our families, how to, and I don't even know, juggle's not really the right word, but he, if we involve him in the process, we are fully capable of doing it and figuring out and doing it the way that is right for us, because that looks different for
Yeah.
so many people. But in doing that too, I also don't think like God's not just going to place a doll in front of us either. He loves effort. So we get to get out there and do some do some of the work, which I think also involves for a lot of us, for me especially, was I made the most progress in creating a business and what I have while I had a coach that I was working at the same time, because it did help me bring up so many of those struggles and so many of those fears that I have. So I think that's part of the effort too, is finding the help that we need to get past those fears.
Yeah, totally. I think there's this delicate balance between educating yourself, finding a mentor or a partner to help you through it, and also really intrinsically trusting in your own ability to move
Mm-hmm.
forward. Many of us kind of swing from one way or to the other, right? We're like, I need to know everything. I need someone to tell me what to do versus, now I'll just do it my own way. And it's kind of somewhere in the middle where we're like gleaning the expertise that God has given other women and men to help us, and also relying on our own intuition, our own gut, and listening to the spirit when we're trying to make a decision.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? Well, like, we would love somebody to tell us step by step what to do. Like, that would be awesome. First of all, because when something goes wrong, we can just blame that. Oh, that was that
Yes,
person's idea. That wasn't
exactly.
my idea. That was somebody else's idea. And I think sometimes that's why I'm always I want it to be God's fault a lot of times too. If I say, well, he told me to do this, then, oh, it's his fault if it doesn't work out the right way. So I think we have to take some ownership in it too. Like, yes, I'm doing this because I felt called to do it, but I
Mhm.
also wanted to do it. And I think that balance in knowing I felt called, but it's something I also want to do, gives us a little bit more skin in the game, maybe a little bit more
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yeah. And it moves you back into that empowerment space,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we love to play the victim. And that is one of the biggest blessings of learning about life coaching, is stepping out of the victim space and understanding that God gave us these talents and skills and this amazing life with all these incredible opportunities so that we could take action and make
Mm-hmm.
effort and build something beautiful. But we can't do it. As those who are acted upon, we have to
Yeah.
be the ones acting.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to remember too, like when you say building something, to build something and create something beautiful, part of what is being built and created is us in that
You, yeah,
process, like a
yeah.
piece of us that didn't exist before. And I think ultimately that's what God is doing. Like, I'm helping create a part of you that is in you that you have not been able to bring forth yet.
Mhm.
And that, I think, is the most beautiful part of the whole thing. Yes, we're creating something beautiful in the world, but we're creating something amazing with ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really excellent point. And sometimes we like to get super focused on maybe the insignificant metrics of our business, how many people are following us, or how much money we're making or whatever. But in the end, how much is it transforming me? How much is it
Mhm.
transforming the people I'm helping? It's just this big, beautiful back and forth of
Yeah.
self-improvement. So good.
Yeah. That's the piece that for me feels like I always remind myself, even if I never made a dollar from what I'm doing, I would never give any of it up for what I have found within myself, what I have found myself to be capable of with the help of my Heavenly Father. I don't know. That's just something that's worth it all right there.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
Love it. All right. Women who are mothers, we're often dealing with knowing how to give our families all of ourselves, right? We want to give them all that they need. We want to be there for all the things. How, I don't know, there's a stress that comes with that, like this feeling of we can't do all of that. There's all these conflicting emotions. How do you coach women who feel this pull, like to be here and there? And
Mhm.
what does that look like?
Well, it's such a personal thing for each woman, right? Some women are going to feel comfortable only if they have this X amount of impact in their family and hours present. They always want to be there for every sporting event or whatever. Other women are going to feel like, no, it's okay if I miss out on some of this, but I want to be there for this, right? So first, you have to really ask yourself, what is most important for me when it comes to
Mhm.
how I show up for my family? Is it important that I'm there 24/7? If not, where do I want to make sure I'm always there? Maybe when they leave to school and come back from school, or do I always want to make sure I'm there for Friday and Saturday nights when they're bringing dates home, or whatever it may be? You decide first what are non-negotiables for you, and then you get to ask the Lord how to balance it all, right? And so I've done something similar. Like, I knew that I wanted to keep homeschooling my kids. I knew that I wanted to still be around at dinner time for my family. So I knew that business building time for me was going to be in the afternoon, where I could squeeze that in. And just little by little, trying something, seeing if it feels like in alignment with what I want to do, and then shifting as needed. Because sometimes I try things and I think, nope, that took me away from home way too much. I was not okay with that. Everything fell apart. I'm going to scale back on that, or vice versa. I am home a little too often. I'm not getting anything done. How can I how can I leave more often and get more work done, right? So just this constant shifting of it's almost like an earthquake is happening, right? You're like constantly like
Yeah.
rebalancing yourself because that's just how life goes. Things come up, right? And so that's one of the beauties of building your own businesses. Things come up for your family, and sometimes your kid is sick, and sometimes your family is having a catastrophe, and you need to be home. And so you get to do that because it's your own business that you're building. But this is just a constant, really paying attention and checking in with your gut.
Mhm. I think it is a huge exercise on trying to stay in tune with yourself. And that can be a little tricky. I know, and I hate to, I'm bringing it back to me, but I guess that's my experience, right? Is that I didn't feel like I was making any progress in building a business um, initially and for a long time because I felt like I was trying to do it how I had seen other people do it. Like, oh, I know they spend this much time. This is what they do. Therefore that's what I need to do, right? Because they're successful. And it wasn't until I was working with my coach and she really helped me see that I'm not creating anything because I'm self-sabotaging. That's not really what I want to have. Like that, the amount of time that they're putting in, that's not going to work with
Right.
my soul, with myself. And as soon as I made some pretty strong limits and, like about, okay, this is what it's going to look like for me. As soon as I did that, I was able to make progress that I hadn't been able to make before because it opened my mind. I wasn't like, oh, begrudgingly trying to do something that I knew wasn't going to be in balance with what I wanted.
Right, right. We love talking about boundaries as coaches, right? And this is essentially what
Mhm.
we're doing is we're it's kind of like involving another person in your life. That's your business, right? And you got to decide what boundaries am I going to give this person? Well, I will check emails between these hours. I will get on social media between these hours. I will be available to clients between these hours or expend this much energy and beyond that I will not because I have dedicated the rest of this time and energy to
Mhm.
my family. And sometimes it's hard because I will tell you that 99% of the time I would rather be working on my business than breaking up fights or making dinner or some of the other things that my kids need me to do, right? I'm like, it's so much more fulfilling to have a client tell me I've changed their life than to go change another diaper. But
Mhm.
that's not in keeping with my value set. My values
Yeah.
say I am this kind of a mom and I can build this thing on the side. And that's what I've chosen to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I, that is so true. And I'm glad you brought that up because for most of us, once we get going in it, like it's actually a little bit more comfortable for us to spend time in our businesses than within within the squabbles of what's going on in our house. So,
It's,
yep.
yeah, motherhood is messy. Motherhood and
Mhm.
business can be messy too, but it feels very fulfilling when you're in
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
that's a
It's
temptation.
true. That's true. I think the other thing that I notice is that we tend to like think, okay, if you talked about like kind of experimenting and seeing what works for you, that we have, at least I do, I have this tendency to think, well, once I've started doing it this way, like that's the way it's going to stay, like, and I think I'm going to be stuck doing it that way. So sometimes I get afraid to even experiment because actually I need to rephrase it and look at it as an experiment rather than, well, this is just the way it's going to be forever. That gives me permission to know that things are going to ebb and flow a little bit.
That's what I teach my clients about every aspect of their business. It's just like we're in a science lab. We're going to
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm going to try offering this freebie and see what people think. Okay, well, nobody wanted this. All right. It's not a failure. I didn't mess up. That was just an experiment that didn't end the way I thought it did. It didn't match my
Mhm.
hypothesis. Now I'm going to try something else. And it keeps some of the drama out of it. We can just look at it really factually and go, oh, you know what? All my kids had major meltdowns on the day that I worked 7 hours. 7 hours is too much. Okay, I'm going to scale back and take another look at how I can show up for both the business and the family. Just not a
Yeah.
big deal. Now we've learned. Move on.
Yeah, I like that scientific, almost scientific perspective of it, which as a homeschooling mom, you probably are also a really good science teacher. I guess that's one of the things that you have to look at. So it's kind of, yeah, I wouldn't have related it to a hypothesis or anything like that because my mind doesn't
Basically,
work
all my
that way.
analogies come from middle school. Just kidding. Elementary school lessons.
I think it's awesome. I think it's great. So, we are naturally drawn to all the things that can go wrong in a situation. And I think we just do that in general. We do that with our kids. We do that. I just was traveling with one of my sisters and we were talking about where our brains go, like to this, everything we can go to the disaster and everything. I would love to hear you share with us some of the positives that you have seen come into women's lives as they have started businesses and tried to step into that role in their life.
Yeah, well, I think the first one, talking about those three hesitations that a lot
Mm-hmm.
of women face, that one about not being good enough, watching the confidence and the just brightness that comes to women who are able to build something outside of themselves, outside of their home, especially those who have been stay-at-home moms and maybe they never had a career, maybe they didn't finish college or they never were given a chance to build something besides this amazing family, which is incredible, but now they're giving themselves a shot at that. And it builds confidence like nobody's business. At first, it's very scary, right? Because you don't know what you're doing and you don't think you're valuable enough. You don't think you have the skills and the education enough. But as you build it and as people value you, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is of value. Yeah, I am changing lives. Yeah, I am making a difference. That is amazing and such a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And then just changing lives ourselves. Every time that I put some sort of content out there into the world and somebody says they appreciate it or it helped them in some way, it just makes me feel like I'm doing God's work, right? Even within my business. Okay, I am serving, I am helping, I'm building. And then the other thing that I see a lot is how much better of a mom I am. On the days when I don't work on my business, it's actually quite hard to be present all the time. I find myself getting overstimulated and overwhelmed sometimes with all the kids and the noise and everything. When I take time for my business, I come back refreshed, excited to be with them again. I've been given a break, but I'm also able to still do something fulfilling. It's the most beautiful thing. And I realized that that was something that was lacking for me for many years. And maybe it isn't for every mom, but it definitely was for me. And that's been a huge pro for me.
Mm. Yeah. How old is your oldest, by the way? I'm just like checking in with the family for a second.
Yeah,
So people can.
he's 18 and he's on a
18.
mission right now.
Okay. And your youngest, you didn't have too long ago. How old's your youngest?
Well, she's 3 now. She just turned 3.
3. Okay. Okay. So 10 between 18 and 3. Lucky kids. And what, I don't know. I think what a gift too that you're offering to them, right? You're showing them how to live in a world where there's so many opportunities and possibilities and how to let your values be in charge, like use them to navigate the world. And I think that's a
Yeah.
great gift that we forget that we can offer to our children as well.
I'm actually so grateful that I know as much as I do about entrepreneurship because, like, my oldest two right now are not interested in college. And 20 years ago, I would have thought that was the worst thing ever, that my
Mhm.
kids weren't going to go to college. And now I'm like, it's all right. There's other things you can do, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. Let
Yeah.
me show you all the other opportunities that are out there for using your skills and your experience and your expertise. And I'm actually very excited for them to do something that they're passionate about instead of forcing them into a mold that isn't right for them. And a couple of my daughters are starting their own business right now, which I'm really
That's
excited about.
awesome.
So it's super fun to be an example to your kids and to teach them to also be this bright light in the world,
Yeah.
right?
I do think it is time for us. Like we are entering into this age where we have a shortage of so many different, I don't want to say professions, but yes, like there are so many things that we need besides the people who are getting their college education for
Right. Especially the
certain
trades,
things. The
right?
trades, that's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. Like the trade shortage is huge. And I think if we as moms don't learn to appreciate the value in being brave and like doing things that might seem a little out of the norm. I think there was a day when going to college wasn't the norm, and now it is the norm. And I think we need to see that, and that's okay, right? Like it's okay that that's not what our kids do. In fact, it is probably beneficial for a large majority of our kids. So the education that we gain there, and I love that you're able to, share that with your kids. I think they need that. They need that permission. They need that.
I'm still working on it a little bit, right? You get in your head like, oh no, this is
Yeah,
going to be the right path for you. Just listen to mom.
yeah, I
But
know.
apparently I don't know.
No, nope. No. Parenting adults, I'm finding it's a whole different set, a whole different skill set that we got to figure out. But
True,
we spent
true.
18 years trying to figure out parenting, and then all of a sudden it like changes drastically again. That we're like, oh wait, I got to figure this one out now.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah.
Oh, so good. All right, I know you see this is an opportunity for many LDS women, just women in general, honestly, but for to just spread goodness. And for us, I view goodness as the gospel, right? And what do you envision happening for the world for women in general as we go forward and we feel called to do the things that we're putting ourselves out there to do.
Yeah. I think the first thing that we can expect is, and we're seeing it already, is just this massive group of women with more confidence and more trust in the Lord, right? Every time we do something that is scary, out of our comfort zone that the Lord is asking us to do, we build faith, we build confidence in ourselves, we build confidence in Him, we build a better understanding of the big picture of our lives and of His plan for all of us. But also the whole point is to gather Israel, right? Like that's our big role right now. And that's what I see the Lord doing with a lot of these women. I love, love, love that quote that President Nelson recently revisited by President Kimball back in the 70s when Sister Kimball gave his talk, where he said that in the last days, there will be huge amounts of growth coming to the church. And most of it will come, or a large part of it will come, because the women of the church are righteous and they stand out in different and happy ways. And that's what I see these women doing. Like we're getting on Instagram, we're getting on Facebook, we're getting on YouTube, and we're just shining. We're just showing people an alternative to maybe the lives they've been exposed to, or we're showing them that it's possible to be happy even while bad things happen. It's possible to feel peace and joy even when things don't work out as expected. And then we're teaching them tools like coaching tools to show them the value of joy. So many good things, but I really do think that this is a tool the Lord is using to gather Israel.
Yeah. Would you also, and I've seen this kind of in my life, and maybe it's because of the particular profession that I am involved in, but I really do feel like growing a business has offered me a more open mind, an expanded level of humanity, and an empathy that I didn't have before, which I feel like is amazing. Like I could never, I'm always like, I don't ever want to go back to the person I was before, because I have this love and this desire to just love people that I didn't have before. And I think in large part, it's because I've been willing to do things that were really uncomfortable, and has just offered me some compassion for other people who are uncomfortable too in whatever it is that they're
Yeah.
trying to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember back in 2020 when I first did my first couple of coaching clients, I was just trying it out. And I got off like 3 calls in a row. And after every single call, there was this overwhelming spiritual experience where the Lord was like, I love that woman.
Mm.
I love her. I love that sister of yours. It was so beautiful. And it was this incredible opportunity for me to just get a peek into what God has for each of us, and that I could kind of be a tool for Him to share some of His love, right?
Yeah.
And so the same thing happens to me. I go to business conferences and I meet people that I would never meet in my tiny little bubble of this corner of Mesa, Arizona. And I'm like, I love you. You're wonderful. You're incredible. And you live a lifestyle so different from mine and have a belief system so different from mine. And it doesn't matter because we're all here just trudging our way along. And I can help you and you can help me. So yes, that is one of the greatest pros of putting ourselves out there, is being more open-minded to other of God's children
Mhm.
and working together.
Yeah. I think that's been one of my great gifts too. So I was curious if you had noticed the same thing. What advice would you give to anybody listening today who's feeling a call to, because that's really what it feels like. It does feel like this call. And then you're like, no, I don't know. You just talk yourself out of it again, right?
Yeah,
But it
totally.
does feel like a call to start a business. But what would you say to them, to those that have reservations and fears?
Yeah, I think I love that you brought up your experience because that is what a call feels like, right? It very often feels like an inner conflict, right? You're thinking, wouldn't it be kind of cool if? And then the other half of your brain is like, no, 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 we are not
Mhm.
doing that, right? So I
Mhm.
think that's kind of how the Lord generally talks to us, is the Spirit impresses something on us. And maybe, the fear in us is like, oh, I don't know if I can, but just listen. That's my first bit of advice, is just listen to the Spirit. And you don't have to commit to anything while listening. You just are going to say, Lord, I'm not going to commit to anything right now. I'm just going to listen to what you have to say to me, and study it out and read scriptures and read conference talks and pray and meditate and do what it takes to hear His will. And then you can make your decision. You
Mhm.
you don't you just give Him a minute to plead His case,
Yeah.
right? And then you can decide.
That's so true. And here's the other thing that I found is that I have to remember that God doesn't speak to me through fear, like those fears that were
Yes.
coming up, because I would be like, oh, well, I wouldn't be afraid to do this if, he wanted me to do it because he must, when I finally figured out, oh no, that's not how he speaks to me. He spoke to me in that moment where I felt peace and I felt excited about it. And it was my own personal fears that are coming up. It's not him speaking to me through this fear. Like, that's not how he speaks to us. And as soon as I'm able to separate that, I can see my human brain kind of being the one that's causing the turmoil versus the peace that I felt when I know that he is trying to lead me and guide me.
Yes, that's such a good reminder. And actually, also a good reminder to realize that there is a being out there who does not want us to put good into the world. There's an adversary who fights against us. And he does use fear, and he uses stress and worry and panic. And we can coach ourselves out of some of those. But if it keeps coming back, sometimes we need to just ask ourselves, do I just need to push through this fear? Because that is not God, right? That is not how he inspires us. So the next step is, once we've listened to the Spirit, is to just step into our courage. Like, we are all courageous people. If you're a mom or a member of the church or literally anyone listening, I know that you show up courageously in your life in a million different ways. This is just one more way that you can show a little bit of courage if you have the faith to do it. And then I would say to lean into the talents that God has given you. That can also help with the imposter syndrome side of things. We go, oh, I'm not doing this. I'm just God's tool. And he's going to give me some skills and give me some talents to use, and I'm going to use those, and I'm going to go out and do his work, right? And then you find and connect with other business owners so that you can kind of feed off their faith and hope, right? And go, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. And then finally, I would say, don't be afraid to testify of Christ. You don't necessarily have to do it in your business, but if you're going to be in view of other people, if you're going to be a public face in one way or another, like, there's a reason for that, right? That the Lord wants us to be his disciples and to go out and testify of him. And whatever way that looks like for you is okay. Just share your values online. People ask you why you are that way, say it's Jesus, right? That is one of the best blessings that, I mean, so many blessings have come to me in my life as I've testified of Christ through my business building. And it can be scary sometimes, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I think it's an exciting topic, and I am so excited to see what is in store for us as women, for us as humanity, as people continue to get brave and courageous and step into what God, our heavenly parents, have in store for us. So thank you for being a tool to help people in that process. So before we go, can you share with people how they can connect with you and get a little bit more help?
Yeah, of course. So I'm on Instagram at Bonnie Wiscombe. My last name is Wiscombe. Looks like Wiscombe. And also my website is bonniewiscombe.com. I'm always doing, webinars, trainings. If this is something that's interesting to you, just come over, sign up for my email list. You'll be notified of all the fun trainings and things that I do to help people kind of step into that courage and be brave enough to do the thing that you're feeling called to do.
Love it. We all need help. I know, like I said before, the biggest advances that I made in building a business and creating what it was that I had envisioned, or what Heavenly Father had helped me see, was in times when I was working with a coach, because we have so much in our brains that keep us from getting there. And when I work with a coach, my progress, it's measured in leaps and bounds versus like the little teeny inches that I am able to do by myself. So I'm so glad.
There's so much more mindset than we realize, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for being here. We'll link to all those things in the show notes, and we appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Heather. So great to be here.
Thank you, Bonnie. We'll see you all later. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.